Captain Jake Morrison stepped off the transport shuttle and felt the warm breeze of Cathera wash over his face. The alien world stretched before him, like something from a dream, with crystal blue trees that seemed to glow from within, and silver, grass that moved without any wind. Purple mountains rose in the distance, their peaks touching clouds that sparkled like diamonds. He had seen pictures and video feeds, but nothing prepared him for the actual beauty of this place. Commander Lisa Park walked beside him, her diplomatic briefcase in one hand and her service weapon on her hip. She had spent months preparing for this moment, learning what little humanity knew about Valoran culture and customs. The weight of representing all of Earth pressed on her shoulders, but she kept her expression calm and professional. Chief Engineer Ryan Cole followed behind them, his eyes wide as he took in the architecture around the landing platform. The Valoran buildings seemed to grow from the ground itself, made of some material that looked like living crystal. Soft light pulsed through the walls in patterns that almost seemed like heartbeats. Nothing had sharp edges or harsh angles. Everything flowed together in perfect harmony. The Valorans waiting to greet them were unlike anything humans had ever encountered. They stood nearly 8 feet tall, with pale blue skin that had an inner glow. Their features were delicate and elegant, with large silver eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. They wore flowing robes that changed color as they moved, and when they walked, their feet barely seemed to touch the ground. Elder Zathara stepped forward, the leader of this world and the one who had first reached out to humanity 3 years ago. When he spoke, his voice came not through sound but directly into their minds, gentle and warm like a favorite teacher. Welcome, friends from Earth. We have waited long for this day. Your species and ours share something rare in this galaxy. We both understand that strength means nothing without compassion, and power is meaningless without wisdom. Jake felt a strange sensation as the elder's thoughts touched his mind. It was not intrusive or frightening, but rather like having a conversation with someone who truly understood him. The mental connection felt natural, as if humans and Valorans were meant to communicate this way. Lisa stepped forward and bowed slightly, following the greeting protocol they had practiced. Elder Zathara, we are honored to be here. Earth sends its gratitude for your friendship and your willingness to share knowledge with our people. The elder's silver eyes seemed to smile, though his expression remained serene. Your Dr. Karen White has been most helpful in our studies. Come, let us show you what we have discovered together. They walked through the city toward the central complex where the alliance ceremony would take place. Along the way, Jake noticed Valorans stopping their daily activities to watch the human visitors. There was no fear or hostility in their gazes, only curiosity and what seemed like hope. Dr. Karen White met them at the entrance to the research facility. She looked tired but excited, her usually neat hair disheveled from long hours of work. She had been living on Cathera for 6 months, working with Valoran scientists to understand the connection between their species. Captain, Commander, you need to see this, she said, leading them into a large chamber filled with strange devices that hummed with soft energy. What we've discovered changes everything we thought we knew about compatibility between species. Ryan immediately gravitated toward a machine that looked like it was made of liquid metal and light. When he reached toward it, the device responded, its surface rippling like water and glowing brighter. How is this possible? He whispered. A young Valoran scientist named Velthara joined them, her mental voice bright with enthusiasm. Your engineer has natural ability with our biotechnology. This is most unusual. In all our history, only Valorans could interface with our systems this way. Dr. White pulled up a holographic display showing brain scans of humans and Valorans side by side. Look at the neural pathways in the regions that control empathy and emotional connection. The patterns are nearly identical. It's as if our species evolved on parallel tracks toward the same goal. Elder Zathara nodded slowly. This is why we chose your people, despite the risks. The Galactic Council has ruled this region of space for over 10,000 years. They maintain order through fear and domination. Species that refuse to submit are either enslaved or eliminated. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. And you've refused to submit? For 3 centuries, we have resisted their demands. They call it rebellion. We call it the right to exist as we choose to exist. The Council has grown impatient with our independence. They have begun making threats. Jake studied the holographic display, his military mind immediately understanding the implications. You're looking for allies because war is coming. War has already begun, Captain Morrison. The Council simply has not yet chosen to end it quickly. They prefer to let their enemies hope for peace while they prepare for total victory. The group moved to another chamber where examples of human valor and hybrid technology were on display. Ryan's eyes widened as he saw weapons that looked both beautiful and terrifying. The metal seemed alive, responding to thought and emotion. When he picked up what looked like a rifle, the weapon molded itself to fit his grip perfectly. Traditional Council weapons use crude energy discharges, Velthara explained. Our bioweapons are far more sophisticated. They disrupt matter at the molecular level. Combined with human engineering principles, they become something neither species could create alone. Dr. White activated another display showing star charts. The Council controls over 400 star systems. They have fleets that number in the thousands of ships. Their technology is old but reliable, and they have resources that dwarf anything humanity has ever seen. But they have one weakness, Elder Zathara added. They have grown complacent. For millennia, they have faced only primitive resistance. They do not understand what it means to fight an enemy that adapts and evolves with each battle. Lisa reviewed the Alliance documents on her datapad. The Cathara Accords will formalize our partnership. Earth agrees to provide military support and strategic planning. In exchange, Valoran biotechnology and scientific knowledge will be shared freely. There is more, the Elder said softly. We offer something that has never been given to another species. Full neural integration. A small number of humans and Valorans can undergo a process that creates permanent mental links. These individuals would be able to coordinate in ways that are impossible for single-species forces. Jake looked at his companions, seeing his own thoughts reflected in their faces. This was far beyond anything they had expected. What are the risks? The process changes both species permanently. Humans who undergo integration develop telepathic abilities but may experience emotional instability. Valorans become more aggressive and tactical, but lose some of their natural peace. The ceremony took place as the sun set over Cathara, painting the crystal trees in shades of gold and red. Representatives from both species gathered in the Great Hall, its walls covered with flowing script that told the history of Valoran civilization. Jake signed his name to the document that would change the course of human history. As the celebration began, alarms started ringing throughout the city. Long-range sensors had detected ships entering the system, vessels that matched no known friendly configuration. Elder Zathara's mental voice reached every mind present, calm, but filled with grim determination. The Council has come sooner than expected. All guests please report to the shelters immediately. The war we feared has finally arrived. Admiral Marcus Kane stood on the bridge of the UES Atlantic, watching the emergency signals flood his command screens. Red alerts blinked across star maps as distress calls arrived from 7 different Valoran colonies. The messages were fragmented and desperate, cut short by static and interference that could only mean one thing. The Council was jamming communications while they attacked. Admiral, we're receiving a priority transmission from Veltar Mining Colony, Communications Officer Linda Hayes reported, her voice tight with stress. It's very weak, sir. The main screen flickered to life showing a Valoran civilian, her blue skin darkened with burns and her silver eyes wide with terror. Behind her, explosions lit up the sky like deadly fireworks. Council ships appeared without warning. They are not attacking military targets. They are burning everything. The cities, the farms, the schools, they want us all dead. The transmission ended abruptly in a burst of white noise. Marcus felt his jaw clench as he processed what he had just witnessed. This was not warfare as humans understood it. This was extermination. Set course for Veltar immediately, he ordered. Send word to all available ships. We have a genocide. To stop. Captain Susan Davis received the call while her ship was docked at Luna Station for repairs. The UES Carolina was not supposed to be ready for combat for another 3 weeks, but she did not hesitate. Get us space-worthy in 6 hours or I'll find a crew that can, she told her chief engineer. Our allies are dying while we sit here. The Carolina launched with half her systems still showing yellow warnings, but Susan pushed her ship harder than she had ever pushed anything in her 20-year career. When they reached Veltar 3 days later, they found a world transformed into hell. The planet's surface glowed with unnatural light where plasma bombs had turned rock into glass. Entire mountain ranges had been melted down to their roots. The oceans boiled with radioactive steam that rose into the atmosphere like poisonous clouds. Where cities once stood, only craters remained, so deep that their bottoms disappeared into darkness. Scanning for life signs, reported Lieutenant Tom Brady, though his voice suggested he already knew what they would find. Nothing, sir. The entire biosphere has been sterilized. Susan stared at the dead world through the viewports, trying to process the scale of destruction. Veltar had been home to over 2 million Valorans just 4 days ago. Now it was a tomb spinning silently through space. Lieutenant Colonel Greg Adams led the ground survey team that landed on Nethulos, the Valoran Cultural Center where their greatest libraries and art galleries had stood for thousands of years. His Marines moved carefully through the ruins, their radiation detectors clicking constantly as they searched for any sign of survivors. What they found was worse than death. The Council had not simply killed the Valorans of Nethulos. They had tortured them first. Greg's team discovered the remains of labor camps where Valorans had been worked to death mining their own sacred crystals. Medical facilities where Council scientists had experimented on living subjects, harvesting their telepathic organs while they were still conscious. "Colonel, you need to see this," called Sergeant Mike Torres from inside what had once been the Great Library. The building's crystal walls were cracked and blackened, but somehow part of the structure remained standing. Greg followed him into a chamber where dozens of Valorans lay dead in perfect circles. Their faces were frozen in expressions of absolute agony, their hands clutched to their heads as if trying to stop some unbearable pain. Strange machines surrounded each group, devices that hummed with malevolent energy, even though their operators were long gone. What were they doing here? Greg asked, though he dreaded the answer. Dr. Amy Rogers, the team's xenobiologist, knelt beside one of the machines and carefully examined its controls. "Based on the neural residue I'm detecting, I believe they were using these Valorans to broadcast their death screams telepathically. Every Valoran in the galaxy would have felt their suffering as they died." Greg felt sick as the implications hit him. Psychological warfare. They wanted their deaths to terrify every other Valoran in the galaxy. Major Beth Turner's reconnaissance team had been monitoring Council communications since the attacks began. What they discovered painted a picture of calculated cruelty that went far beyond military necessity. The Council had planned this genocide for months, studying Valoran biology and psychology to maximize suffering while minimizing their own losses. "They're not just trying to eliminate the Valorans," Beth reported during the daily briefing. "They're trying to break the spirit of any species that might consider resisting them in the future. This is a message written in blood and broadcast across the galaxy." The worst discovery came on Kethera itself. Admiral Kane arrived with the full rescue fleet to find the beautiful crystal world transformed into a vision of apocalypse. The Council had used weapons designed specifically to torture the planet itself. Instead of quick orbital bombardment, they had cracked the planetary crust in thousands of places, letting the molten core bleed through like infected wounds. Captain Jake Morrison, who had walked among the crystal trees just 2 weeks earlier, now stood on ground that burned his boots even through their protective coating. The air itself was poison, filled with vapors that would kill any unprotected human in minutes. "There's nothing left to save," he reported to Admiral Kane. "The entire ecosystem is collapsing. Even if we could somehow cool the planet, it would take centuries to become habitable again." The final transmission from Elder Zethara reached Earth, just as the Council finished their work on Kethara. The message arrived through channels that should have been impossible to access, carried by technology that pushed beyond anything humans had seen before. The Elder appeared on screen, his once beautiful features marked by burns and his silver eyes dimmed with approaching death. Behind him, the great hall where the alliance had been signed was collapsing as the planet died around him. "Friends of Earth, we have one final gift for you," Our complete technological database is being transmitted to your scientists now. Everything we have learned, everything we have built, everything we have dreamed, it is yours now. But more than that, we give you our final wish. Remember us. Remember what they did to us. And when you have the power, make them pay for every life they took. Show the galaxy what happens when humans lose those they love. The transmission ended as the ceiling fell in, crushing the last free Valorans in the galaxy. Elder Zethara died as his world burned around him, but his final gift reached Earth intact. 18 billion Valorans were dead, but their knowledge and their cry for vengeance lived on in human hands. Admiral Kane stood in his ready room, reading the final casualty reports. 7 worlds sterilized, an entire species exterminated in less than 72 hours. Not a single survivor found anywhere in Valoran space. The efficiency of it was as terrifying as the cruelty. He opened a secure channel to Earth Command. This is Admiral Kane reporting. The Valoran species has been completely eliminated by Council forces. I am recommending immediate activation of Protocol Omega. These monsters need to learn that humanity does not forget its friends, and we do not forgive those who murdered them. President Helen Brooks stood before the emergency session of the World Assembly, her face calm, but her eyes burning with cold fury. Representatives from every nation on Earth had gathered within hours of receiving the news from Valoran space. The images from the dead worlds played on screens around the chamber, showing the complete destruction of humanity's first alien allies. Fellow citizens of Earth, she began, her voice carrying to every corner of the planet through live broadcasts. 18 billion innocent beings have been murdered by the Galactic Council. They killed our friends not in battle, but in camps and laboratories. They tortured them for the simple crime of choosing to be our allies. This cannot stand. This will not stand. The response was immediate and unified. Every delegate rose to their feet, their voices joining in a chant that had not been heard since the dark days of World War III. Remember the Valorans. Make them pay. General Paul Stevens received the authorization codes for Protocol Omega 30 minutes later. He had hoped never to see those numbers, had prayed that humanity would never need the weapons and ships hidden in the deepest military bunkers. But as he entered the commands that would activate Earth's most terrible secrets, he felt only grim satisfaction. Across the solar system, hidden facilities began to stir to life. Asteroid mining stations that appeared to be simple resource collectors revealed their true purpose as automated shipyards. Moon bases that officially studied geology opened massive underground construction bays. Space stations that claimed to research peaceful technologies began assembling weapons that violated every treaty humanity had ever signed. Dr. Amy Rogers led the team of scientists working frantically to decode the Valoran technology database. The data Elder Zethara had transmitted in his final moments contained the accumulated knowledge of an entire civilization. Bioweapons that could reshape matter at the molecular level, stealth systems that bent light around entire starships, and power sources that drew energy from the fabric of space itself. This is incredible, she told General Stevens during their daily briefing. The Valorans were pacifists, but their technology could be adapted for warfare in ways they never imagined. Combined with human engineering principles, we can create weapons that will make Council forces look like children throwing rocks. The first prototype emerged from the Mars construction facility 6 weeks after the Valoran genocide. The UES Retribution looked nothing like traditional human warships. Its hull was made of living metal that could repair itself and adapt to different combat situations. Its weapon systems integrated Valoran biotechnology with human tactical doctrine, creating armaments that were both beautiful and terrifying. Commander Chris Taylor volunteered to lead the first test of the new hybrid systems. He had served alongside Valorans during the brief period of cooperation, and their deaths had left him with a burning need for vengeance. When he connected to the ship's bioneural interface, he felt the presence of his dead friends flowing through the systems like ghosts seeking revenge. The integration is working perfectly, he reported to the command team watching from the observation deck. The ship responds to thought as much as to manual controls. It's like the Valorans built it specifically for human minds. Captain Maria Santos commanded the first combat trial of the new technology. Her target was an abandoned space station in the outer asteroid belt, one that matched the defensive capabilities of a typical Council outpost. When she activated the Retribution's main weapon, the result exceeded every projection. The beam that emerged from the ship did not simply destroy the station, it unraveled it, breaking down the molecular bonds that held matter together and scattering the atoms into space. Where a massive structure had existed moments before, nothing remained but empty void and fading energy signatures. "My God," whispered Dr. Rogers as she watched the readings. "We've created a weapon that can erase matter from existence itself." Commander Rick Davis volunteered for the Neural Integration Program despite knowing the risks. The process required connecting human brain tissue directly to Valoran biotechnology, allowing the subjects to interface with alien systems in ways that pure humans could not achieve. Only 12 volunteers survived the procedure out of 50 who attempted it. "The integration is changing me," Rick reported during his psychological evaluation. "I can feel the pain the Valorans experienced when they died. Their memories are becoming part of me. But I also have access to their knowledge of Council weaknesses and their understanding of bioweapon systems." The integrated humans became the core of what would be called the Fury Corps, soldiers who carried the memories and skills of dead Valorans while retaining human tactical thinking. They were unstable and dangerous, but their effectiveness in combat simulations far exceeded normal human capabilities. Earth's industrial capacity exploded into overdrive as every factory, every shipyard, and every construction facility was converted to military production. The planet had not seen such mobilization since the resource wars of the previous century. Civilian transportation was seized for military use. Entertainment industries were shut down to free up resources for weapon production. Every human colony received orders to begin producing materials for the war effort. Admiral Rebecca Jones took command of the first operational fleet of hybrid warships 3 months after the genocide. The Deep Strike Fleet consisted of 20 vessels that looked more like living creatures than mechanical constructions. Their hulls pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that served as communication systems, and their weapons were grown rather than built. "These ships are not just tools," she explained to her captains during their final briefing before departure. "They are partners. The Valoran biotechnology responds to our emotions as much as our commands. Your anger, your grief, your desire for vengeance will make these weapons more effective than any targeting computer." The first deployment of the new fleet was a test mission against a Council listening post in neutral space. The target was lightly defended and considered strategically unimportant, perfect for evaluating combat effectiveness without alerting the main Council forces. Captain Steve Martin commanded the UES Vengeance during the attack. His ship approached the Council station using Valoran stealth technology that made it invisible to all known sensors. The enemy never knew they were under attack until their base began dissolving around them. "Target eliminated," Martin reported. "No survivors detected. The bioweapons worked exactly as projected. The station's crew died before they could send a distress signal. Dr. Jennifer Adams completed work on her most terrible creation exactly 1 year after the Valoran genocide. The weapon she had developed was not a bomb or a beam, but a virus, specifically designed to target the neural systems of Council species. It spread through their natural telepathic networks, causing madness and death on a scale that matched what they had done to the Valorans. "This is what justice looks like," she told President Brooks as they reviewed the final test results. "They used our friends' telepathic abilities to spread terror and pain. Now we will use their own mental connections to deliver their punishment." The president authorized the deployment of biological weapons with the same calm determination she had shown throughout the mobilization. Earth had tried peace and friendship with alien species, only to watch their allies be slaughtered like animals. Now humanity would show the galaxy what happened when humans lost those they loved. The war machine was ready. The weapons were tested. The soldiers were trained and angry. Earth's fury had been awakened, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same. Operation Nemesis began at exactly midnight Earth Standard Time, 2 years after the last Valoran died screaming on Cathara. Admiral Rebecca Jones stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching as her deep strike fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Council territory. The 20 ships of her command looked like predators made of living metal and light, their bioluminescent hulls pulsing with barely contained fury. "All ships report ready for combat," announced Captain Lisa Carter from the communications station. "Stealth systems are active. We are invisible to their sensors." The first target was Supply Depot Gamma 7, a massive orbital platform that provided fuel and ammunition to 3 Council fleets. Intelligence reports indicated over 50,000 Council personnel were stationed there, making it the perfect place to announce humanity's return to the galaxy. Captain Steve Martin guided the UES Vengeance toward the depot using approach vectors that would have been impossible for traditional starships. The hybrid biotechnology allowed his vessel to phase partially out of normal space, sliding between dimensions like a ghost seeking revenge. His crew of integrated humans felt the presence of their dead Valoran friends flowing through the ship's systems, guiding their weapons toward their enemies. "Target acquired," Martin reported. "Beginning attack run." The Vengeance opened fire with weapons that defied the laws of physics as the Council understood them. Beams of pure dissolution struck the depot's shields and simply passed through them, as if they did not exist. The energy barriers that should have protected 50,000 lives crumbled like paper in a hurricane. What happened next would be replayed on Council communication networks for months. The massive supply depot, a structure larger than most cities, began to unravel from the molecular level up. Metal became gas became energy, and energy dispersed into nothing. In less than 3 minutes, the entire facility and everyone inside it had been erased from existence. "Target eliminated," Martin announced, his voice calm despite the magnitude of destruction he had just unleashed. No survivors, no debris, no trace that anything was ever there. Similar attacks occurred simultaneously across 12 different star systems. Council outposts, supply lines, and communication relays vanished without warning or trace. By dawn Earth Standard Time, the Council had lost over 500,000 personnel and had no idea what had killed them. Colonel Nick Davis led the special operations teams that infiltrated Council worlds using Valoran biomimetic technology. The alien systems could reshape human cellular structure at the genetic level, allowing his soldiers to perfectly mimic any Council species they encountered. They walked through enemy cities looking like trusted citizens while gathering intelligence and planting weapons that would activate when the time came. "The Zelkans are starting to suspect their own people," Nick reported during a coded transmission from the Council world of Zelmoth. 3 of their military commanders have been executed for suspected treason in the past week. They cannot understand how their bases keep exploding from the inside. The psychological warfare was working perfectly. Council species had maintained their empire through absolute trust in their surveillance systems and their ability to detect threats. When humans began destroying targets that should have been impossible to reach, paranoia spread through their ranks like a plague. Captain Dan White commanded the UES Fury during the battle that would be remembered as the Massacre of Krelnash. His ship was part of a 12-vessel hunting pack that encountered a Council patrol fleet while prowling the hyperspace routes between their core worlds. The enemy squadron consisted of 30 heavy cruisers and 2 dreadnoughts, more than enough firepower to destroy any traditional human force. "Enemy ships are hailing us," reported Lieutenant Sarah Johnson. "They are demanding our surrender." Dan smiled coldly as he felt the ship's bioneural systems respond to his emotions. The Valoran technology fed on human anger, growing stronger as his fury increased. Around him, his integrated crew members began to glow with the same energy that flowed through the ship's weapons. "Tell them we have a message from the Valorans," he ordered. "Then show them what 18 billion ghosts look like when they get angry." The battle lasted 17 minutes and became the stuff of nightmares for any Council forces that survived to hear about it. Human ships moved like living creatures, dodging weapons fire that should have been impossible to avoid. Their energy beams passed through enemy shields as if they were not there, and their bioweapons began dissolving Council vessels from the inside out. When the fighting ended, 32 Council ships had been completely destroyed while the human fleet suffered only minor damage to 1 vessel. More importantly, The battle had been broadcast live across Council communication networks before the enemy could cut the transmission. Every Council species now knew that humanity had returned, and they were bringing weapons that made their previous technology look like stone knives. Dr. Jennifer Adams watched from her laboratory on Luna Station as her biological weapon was deployed for the first time. The target was Threx Prime, homeworld of the species that had designed the torture chambers found on Nethulos. The virus she had created was specifically tailored to Threx biology, spreading through their natural pheromone communication system. Infection rates are exceeding all projections, reported her assistant Dr. Kevin Brown as they monitored the plague's progress. The entire planetary population should be affected within 72 hours. The Threx death scream began on the second day. Their species communicated through subsonic frequencies that carried emotions as well as information. As the virus drove them mad, their terror and pain spread across their homeworld like an audio nightmare. Every Threx on the planet died while broadcasting their agony to anyone capable of hearing it. Perfect replication of what they did to the Valorans, Jennifer noted with clinical satisfaction. They used our friends' telepathic abilities to spread terror. Now they know exactly how it feels. Admiral Jones coordinated the next phase of the operation from her command ship as human forces struck deeper into Council territory. The strategy was simple, but devastating. Instead of trying to hold territory, human fleets would appear without warning, destroy everything they could find, then vanish before reinforcements could arrive. The Council's vast empire became a hunting ground where humans were the apex predators. Captain Robert Hill commanded a strike force that attacked the shipyards of Vextar, where the Council built their largest warships. His ships used Valoran phase technology to materialize inside the construction facilities, where the enemy vessels were helpless and undefended. In one day, they destroyed 3 years' worth of ship construction and eliminated the skilled workers needed to build replacements. The Council is trying to negotiate, reported Intelligence Officer Michelle Adams during the weekly command briefing. They are offering reparations for the Valoran genocide and proposing peace talks. Admiral Jones studied the message for exactly 10 seconds before deleting it. Send them Elder Zethara's final transmission. Tell them that when every Council world burns the way Kethara burned, we will consider discussing terms. The hunt continued across space as human forces demonstrated that their capacity for violence, when unleashed, exceeded anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Council had ruled through fear for 10,000 years, but now they were learning what true terror looked like when it came from a species that understood both love and vengeance. The massive human fleet arrived at Xanthos Prime like death itself, coming to claim what it was owed. President Helen Brooks stood on the bridge of the flagship UES Retribution, wearing the black uniform she had adopted after the Valoran genocide. Around her, the Grand Fleet stretched across space like a constellation of vengeance, over 300 ships of hybrid biotechnology that pulsed with barely contained fury. Xanthos Prime hung before them like a jewel of arrogance. The capital, world of the Galactic Council that had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. Its surface sparkled with cities that housed the leadership of 12 species, the beings who had ordered the death of every Valoran man, woman, and child. Soon it would sparkle with something else entirely. Madam President, we are receiving surrender offers from 17 different Council factions, reported Admiral Rebecca Jones. They are begging for mercy and offering complete submission to human authority. Helen looked at the planet that had been the source of so much suffering and felt only cold satisfaction. Open a channel to all Council worlds. Let them hear this message clearly. The transmission reached every inhabited system in Council space, carried by communication networks that humanity had learned to hijack and control. Helen's face appeared on screens across hundreds of worlds, her expression calm, but her eyes burning with the fire of absolute judgment. Leaders of the Galactic Council, you showed no mercy to our friends when they begged for their lives. You tortured them in laboratories and made them suffer for your entertainment. Elder Zethara sent us their final message before you murdered him and his entire species. Today you will learn what that message means. The recording of Elder Zethara's last transmission played across every Council communication network. His burned and dying face spoke the words that had haunted human dreams for 3 years. Remember us. Remember what they did to us. And when you have the power, make them pay for every life they took. Fleet Admiral Jason Wright received the order he had been waiting for since the day he watched Cathara burn. All ships, commence planetary bombardment. Show them what 18 billion ghosts look like when they seek justice. The weapons that struck Xanthos Prime were not the crude energy blasts or nuclear warheads of primitive warfare. These were planet crackers, machines built from Valoran biotechnology and human engineering that could tear worlds apart from the core outward. Instead of destroying the surface quickly, they burrowed deep into the planet's crust and began the slow work of geological murder. Captain Mike Parker commanded the boarding parties that captured the surviving council leadership before the planet died completely. His integrated soldiers moved through the collapsing government buildings like avenging spirits, their biosuits allowing them to survive in the toxic atmosphere created by the planet crackers. They found the council chamber where the genocide had been planned and approved. 12 species had voted unanimously to exterminate the Valorans, and their representatives were still there, huddled in their protected bunker while their world came apart around them. "You cannot do this," pleaded Council Prime Zekthul, leader of the species that had personally designed the torture chambers on Nethulos. "We are willing to surrender. We offer you tribute and territory. Please, show mercy." Captain Parker looked at the alien who had signed the death warrant of an entire species and felt the presence of his dead Valoran friends flowing through his biosuit systems. "You want mercy. Here is the same mercy you showed to 18 billion innocent beings." The council leaders were transported to Earth for a trial that was broadcast across the galaxy. They were brought before a court where the ashes of Cathara had been preserved as evidence, surrounded by holographic displays showing every Valoran world they had destroyed. The judges were humans who carried the memories of their alien friends, and the verdict was never in doubt. "Guilty of genocide," announced Chief Justice Carol Mitchell as she read the sentence that had been predetermined by the scope of their crimes. "Guilty of torture. Guilty of crimes against all sentient life. The sentence is death, to be carried out immediately upon the complete elimination of your species. The systematic destruction of the council races began the next day." Dr. Jennifer Adams had spent 3 years creating biological weapons specifically tailored to each species' unique biology. The viruses spread through their homeworlds like wildfire, designed not just to kill but to cause the same terror and agony the Valorans had experienced. The Threx died screaming telepathic death songs that drove survivors insane. The Velkari dissolved from the inside as their cellular structure collapsed. The Zephyrians suffocated as the virus converted their atmosphere into poison gas. Each species faced extinction in a manner that perfectly mirrored what they had done to others. Admiral Jones supervised the final phase of the operation from orbit around what had once been Xanthos Prime. The planet crackers had done their work, while turning the capital world into a spreading field of debris and molten rock. Where the center of galactic government had stood for millennia, now only empty space remained. "Final casualty reports are coming in from all target worlds," reported Captain Dan White. 12 species, 437 inhabited worlds, total estimated population of 600 billion beings, complete biological extinction achieved on all targets. Helen Brooks stood in the observation lounge of her flagship, watching the debris of Xanthos Prime drift past like cosmic snow. The galaxy's oldest empire had been erased as completely as they had erased the Valorans. Justice had been served with the same efficiency and thoroughness that the Council had once used against their enemies. "Madam President, we are receiving communications from over 200 surviving species," Admiral Jones reported. "They are asking about humanity's intentions now that the Council is gone." Helen activated the communication system that would carry her words to every inhabited world in the galaxy. Her message was simple and direct, spoken in the calm voice of someone who had seen her friends murdered and had made their killers pay the ultimate price. "Peoples of the galaxy, humanity does not seek to rule you. We are not conquerors. We are protectors of the innocent and mourners with very long memories. The Galactic Council is gone because they chose to murder our allies. We will leave you in peace as long as you leave others in peace. But remember what happened here. Remember what we did to those who harmed our friends. And never make the mistake of thinking that human fury, once awakened, ever truly goes to sleep. The great ships of Earth's fleet began to disperse across the galaxy, taking up positions as guardians of the new order. Captain Jake Morrison, who had signed the alliance with the Valorans 3 years earlier, commanded the memorial fleet that remained at the coordinates where Cathara once spun. There, using technology gifted by their dying friends, humanity built a monument that would broadcast the names and memories of every murdered Valoran until the end of time. Earth had retaliated with fury, and the cosmos would remember forever that humans were the most dangerous friends and the most terrible enemies any species could have.